Breaking news tonight, the state of emergency as we come on the air. The deadly tornado outbreak tearing across the south. There have been multiple fatalities confirmed, and the images of destruction just coming in. The force leveling homes, the dangerous system on the move, 32 million at risk, and the major threats as we head into the night. Al Roker is tracking it for us. Also tonight, President Biden's first news conference dominated by the challenges at the border. The president defending his handling of the migrant surge, what he said about those images, unaccompanied children packed into holding facilities, and his decision to let them stay in the U.S. Plus the news he made, will he run again in 2024? The COVID crisis, President Biden doubling his goal, 200 million vaccinations in his first 100 days. It comes as cases now rise in over half the states, and the university telling students they must be vaccinated for the fall. My exclusive with Pfizer as the company announces its first vaccine tests in young children. The suspect in the Boulder mass shooting, his first court appearance in a wheelchair, and remembering the victims. And after a year-long delay, the countdown to the Tokyo Olympics finally begins.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. It is going to be a restless and possibly dangerous night across a big part of the South where tornado watches and warnings have been posted. The severe weather has killed at least 3 people in Alabama. Early pictures showing major destruction, and forecasters warning of the potential for more severe weather, including flash flooding well into the night across several states. Al Roker will tell us who is at risk in a moment, but first a late report from Kerry Sanders in Alabama.
Tornado on the ground right in front of me, going up this mountain.
Tonight, at least 3 people killed by tornadoes in Alabama, and fears of possibly more touchdowns through the night. Already, as many as a dozen unconfirmed tornadoes causing widespread damage in Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. And even though residents were aware of the threat as early as last night, not all moved fast enough to escape. 74-year-old James Dunaway ignored the alert on his cell phone.
I was out there watching the president on TV. There was about a minute left. He was just about to finish, and the power flickered off.
He survived without serious injury, as did his neighbors. It's Trish Partridge's birthday today. Instead of celebrating, she was hiding downstairs with her husband.
In a closet.
You got in the closet?
And put mixing bowls on her head. Metal mixing bowls, yeah. And we heard it, and I said, oh my God, it's gone.
Tonight, conditions remain prime for yet more tornadoes. It was 8 days ago when as many as 49 twisters hammered this region of the country.
With the threat tonight of more tornadoes in the darkness, emergency officials are encouraging residents to sleep with their cell phones by their beds in case another alert goes off. Lester?
All right, Kerry Sanders tonight. Thank you. And Al Roker is tracking it all for us. Al, how is this shaping up?
Lester, this is a volatile situation. Tornado watches up. In fact, one labeled a particularly dangerous situation as this system pushes to the east. High risk today and into tonight for 32 million people for dangerous winds, hail, and tornadoes. We've had 2 high risks in March. The last time that happened, 1991. 102 million people from the Gulf all the way to the upper Midwest and the Northeast up for gusts of 60 miles per hour. Down trees, power outages possible. We have flash flood watches in effect for multiple rounds of rain for the Tennessee and Mississippi River valleys. Anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain. We'll continue to track it tonight and have a complete report tomorrow morning on Today. Lester?
We'll be watching, Al. Thank you. President Biden held his first formal news conference today, doubling down on how many vaccine shots he now expects in the first 100 days in office. But 2 other issues dominated today: immigration and how far the president is willing to go to push the Senate to see through his agenda. Kristen Welker was in the news conference.
At his first press conference since taking office, President Biden laying out a new target for COVID vaccinations, 200 million shots in his first 100 days.
I know it's ambitious, twice our original goal, but no other country in the world has even come close, not even close to what we are doing. I believe we can do it.
But with more than 130 million shots already administered, the U.S. is on pace to beat that benchmark. Still, administration officials stress hitting that target will require vaccinating people in hard-to-reach communities quickly. The president faced a flurry of questions about some of the most pressing issues, including the surge of migrants at the southern border.
I guess I should be flattered. People are coming because I'm the nice guy. It happens every single solitary year.
But his own DHS secretary says the administration is bracing for a surge not seen in 20 years, with nearly 5,000 children currently being held at border facilities, most longer than the law allows.
The idea that I'm going to say, which I would never do, if an unaccompanied child ends up at the border, we're just going to let them starve to death and stay on the other side. No previous administration did that either, except Trump. I'm not going to do it.
And while the administration let our cameras into one detention center, we pressed the president. When will the public see what is happening at the centers that are overcrowded? Will you commit to transparency on this?
I will commit to transparency. And as soon as I am in a position to be able to implement what we're doing right now. So this is being set up, and you'll have full access to everything once we get this thing moving.
President Biden reversed some controversial Trump-era policies on his first day in office, including scrapping one that mandated migrants wait in Mexico while their asylum claims are processed. Tonight, insisting he has no regrets.
Did you move too quickly to roll back some of the executive orders of your predecessor?
First of all the policies that are underway were not helping at all. I make no apologies for that.
Mr. Biden, who has an ambitious agenda from new gun restrictions to immigration reform and climate change, left the door open to getting rid of the filibuster, which requires a 60-vote margin in the Senate to pass bills.
And if we have to, if there's complete lockdown and chaos as a consequence of the filibuster, then we'll have to go beyond what I'm talking about.
The president flashing anger when asked about Republican efforts to limit voting rights.
What I'm worried about is how un-American this whole initiative is. It's sick. It's sick.
And Mr. Biden, who is the oldest president in history at 78, swatting away questions about whether he plans to seek re-election.
You haven't set up a re-election campaign yet, as your predecessor had by this time.
My predecessor needed to. My predecessor. Oh, God, I miss him. No, the answer is yes. My plan is to run for re-election. That's my expectation.
Kristen, I know you also asked the president about North Korea, which tested 2 ballistic missiles this week. What did he have to say?
Lester, the president called North Korea the top foreign policy issue and vowed consequences if the country escalates. Meanwhile, on Afghanistan, the president said it would be hard to meet a May 1st deadline to withdraw troops set under former President Trump. Lester.
All right, Kristen Welker, thanks very much. Let's bring in Chuck Todd now, moderator of Meet the Press. Chuck, we've just been talking about what the president did say. What about what was left out today? What struck you?
Well, it's the issue of COVID. I mean, when you actually divide up the press conference, there was the news they intended to make, and then there's the category of unintentional news, which we're all trying to figure out if he made any. I don't think he made any unintentional news. The intentional news was announcing the 200 million vaccine doses on his first 100 days. And the reporters didn't have a single question about vaccine distribution, international vaccines, the COVID economy, nothing. There were questions about all these other topics. Biden was very careful not to actually advance the ball on any of those. He said new words and phrases, but did he really actually announce anything concrete? No. And the fact that there was no COVID questions, well, in some ways, that's a reflection that maybe COVID's going pretty well for Biden.
Interesting observation. Chuck Todd, thank you. In just 60 seconds, we're at the border with a reality check after the president's remarks today, and I speak exclusively to a top Pfizer official about getting kids vaccinated. At today's news conference, the president suggested the migrant surge we're seeing is comparable to those of past years. But there is more to the numbers. Gabe Gutierrez is in Texas and has a reality check.
With more unaccompanied migrant children arriving at the U.S. border, President Biden is defending his decision to let them stay.
The only people we're not going to let sitting there on the other side of the Rio Grande by themselves with no help are children.
He insists there's no crisis and that surges are seasonal.
There is a significant increase in the number of people coming to the border in the winter months.
This year, between January and February, there was a 28% increase in border apprehensions. In 2019, during the same period, the increase was 31%. But the overall numbers this year are higher, 100,000 in February compared to 76,000 in 2019. The Biden administration says that's partly due to migrants having delayed their trips during the pandemic. What's alarming, though, is the higher number of unaccompanied minors this time around. There's now more than 16,000 in federal custody, some held in facilities like this one. Children are harder to care for, and the Department of Health and Human Services says that it has fewer beds due to COVID. In this HHS facility we toured here in Carrizo Springs, we saw teen boys playing soccer and going to class. Now the rush is on to set up new temporary housing in San Diego, Dallas, Midland, and Pecos, Texas, plus military bases in San Antonio and El Paso. Today we learned from administration officials that migrant children are not being tested for COVID in Border Patrol stations, where they're spending days in crowded conditions. They are tested once they're moved to less crowded HHS facilities like this one. More than 100 teenagers have tested positive here, Lester.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez tonight. Thank you. There is real urgency to getting many more Americans vaccinated and more quickly. More than 87 million have now received at least one shot. But it's those other numbers driving real concern tonight, the number of new infections. With more on that, here's Miguel Almaguer.
Tonight, for the first time in months, states in more than half the nation are now reporting a climb in new COVID cases, while Michigan is home to the highest spike, 106% over the last 2 weeks. In Minnesota, authorities confirm 89 breakthrough infections in people after they were fully vaccinated. Meanwhile, a troubling new report shows in 13 states, coronavirus hospitalizations are on the rise.
Every day I see the numbers for our hospital, for the other hospitals in our system, and it's all going up. I've seen people who looked good one day and the next day they're, intubated.
With 1,000 Americans still dying every day from the virus, the race between variants and vaccinations is at a critical crossroad. After safety regulators questioned their early data, AstraZeneca revised its vaccine efficacy down from 79% to 76%, perhaps undermining public confidence. It comes as Rutgers University announces vaccinations will be required for students who attend in the fall. More than 40 states plan to offer vaccines to all adults by May 1st.
I've been waiting a long time and I finally got it, so I'm ready.
Here in California, effective next month, anyone 16 and over can be vaccinated. The majority of new infections are those under 50, while the majority of new deaths are those over 50. Lester?
All right, Miguel, thanks. 3 months, I should say, after beginning COVID vaccine trials in children ages 12 to 15, Pfizer announcing today it has begun trials in even younger kids, starting with 5 to 11-year-olds and later expanding to infants as young as 6 months. I spoke about it with pediatrician Dr. Bill Gruber, who oversees the company's clinical trials for children.
We've started to vaccinate in a phase 1 trial, children 5 to 11 years of age, and we plan to move down progressively to children as young as 6 months of age.
Pfizer says they will test kids in 3 age groups in the U.S. and Europe. Are these children getting the same vaccine that's currently being administered to adults?
Yeah, so it's the same vaccine, but we take a very deliberate and careful approach to assure ourselves of the safety and how well the vaccine can be tolerated in young children. So as we move down into the 5 to 11-year-olds, we'll start with a somewhat lower dose, and then we will move forward to a mid-sized dose and then to an adult dose.
What's the earliest we could see vaccines being authorized for use in children?
Our goal is to get this information submitted to the FDA as soon as possible. If all goes as planned, the vaccine for 12 to 15-year-olds could be ready as soon as the start of the next school year.
Can we reach herd immunity if we don't get kids vaccinated?
I think adding the school-age population based on recommendations from the FDA and the CDC could go a long way in helping us reach herd protection.
And what are kids asking?
Will there be side effects just like there is for adults?
We know that only a small proportion of adults have fever or chills, and we're working very deliberately to try to make sure that as we move down into children, that they don't have reactions that are greater than those that are seen in adults.
Right now, you have real-world data, if you will, on the vaccine in terms of the adult population. Does any of that give you greater confidence that this will be equally as effective with children?
I think we need to see what the immune response in children is, specifically how much antibody they make that can kill the virus. Is it comparable to what we see in adults? If it is, then I think we have reason to have great confidence that the vaccine will likely protect children as well as it does adults.
More kids' questions answered on all this on the latest Nightly News Kids edition. In Boulder, Colorado, the 21-year-old man accused of killing 10 people at a supermarket Monday appeared in court for the first time. His lawyer said he has a mental illness that needs to be assessed. While at the station where fallen officer Eric Talley served, his police car is now a makeshift memorial. Up next, a sign of hope as the Olympic torch relay begins. After it was delayed a year, the Olympic torch relay is off and running, the biggest test yet for organizers of this summer's games. Here's Keir Simmons.
The Olympic torch lit at last. Day 2 of the relay getting underway tonight under increased scrutiny. It will go to every corner of the country and pass between 10,000 torchbearers, raising hopes and fears. Polls show 60 to 80% of the Japanese public want the games to be postponed or cancelled. But the flame was kept alight in Japan for 12 difficult months. The relay finally kicking off in Fukushima, ground zero of a disaster a decade ago. Athletes like Team USA pole vaulter Sandy Morris say it's a sign of hope. It's happening, which must feel pretty good.
It does, because we've had a lot of disappointments.
It will be an Olympics like no other. International spectators will not be allowed. Will it affect your performance?
I'm not going to lie, it's going to be very hard, and maybe some of the performances might suffer.
But for millions watching around the world, this flame, Olympic organizers say, represents the sunrise on a new era.
We're going to go out there as a team, wanting to step out on the field of play and do something to the very best of our ability. That is what the Olympics is about.
Keir Simmons, NBC News.
Also tonight, a glimpse into the life of Pope Francis like you've never seen from a documentary about to air in the U.S. Ann Thompson has a first look.
Like its subject, controversy follows the documentary Francesco.
I'm convinced that we can make a difference.
The film, streaming on Discovery Plus Sunday, ignited a firestorm last October, revealing Pope Francis' previously unaired support for civil unions. The Pope saying homosexuals have a right to be part of the family. Unearthed by producer-director Yevgeny Afanyevsky.
There were people who said you took things out of context.
What he said, we should create a civil unions to protect these people. So he's not endorsing marriages. He's not changing the doctrine.
No church approval of same-sex marriage, reiterated in the Vatican's decision last week, barring priests from blessing such unions. Juan Carlos Cruz, a gay man and clergy sex abuse survivor, is a friend of Francis.
He said, Juan Carlos, you have to understand that God made you gay. God loves you like you are.
The film shows how Cruz's persistence helped the Pope do a 180 on the sex abuse scandal in Chile, going from denial to an extraordinary apology.
That's what I'm admiring in him. He is a leader who's seeking transparency.
Offering clarity in the mystery of faith. Ann Thompson, NBC News.
Up next, saluting recipients of our highest military honor. Finally, some profiles in courage and sacrifice on this National Medal of Honor Day. Here's Peter Alexander.
It's our nation's highest and most prestigious military honor, awarded to service members who put their lives at risk above and beyond the call of duty.
Their courage almost defies imagination.
At the memorial to Abraham Lincoln, who founded the Medal of Honor, we spoke this week with two recipients about bravery on the battlefield.
What's different about the Medal of Honor is that it's representative of something much higher than yourself.
Lieutenant Colonel William Swenson, that's him during a 2009 firefight in Afghanistan, leading a team to rescue fellow troops and search for the missing. Major General Pat Brady, who flew over 2,000 combat missions in Vietnam and rescued over 5,000 injured soldiers.
Patriotism is not just saying you love your country. A patriot is someone who will support and defend their country.
Their stories, the foundation for the National Medal of Honor Museum, a permanent home for their acts of heroism.
Veterans, they're not really interested in themselves. They're more interested in what they can pass on to the values that they represent.
The structure itself symbolizing strength, a massive slab of steel appearing to float in the sky. The museum, to open in 2024, will be built near Dallas. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones pledging $20 million for the project. Of more than 3,500 recipients, today just 69 are still living.
It's an honor to be in the military. It's an honor to represent your country, to represent your service, and to serve alongside some of the finest Americans that you will ever find.
A vault for our values, like sacrifice and selflessness. Peter Alexander, NBC News, Washington.
That's nightly news for this Thursday. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.